You think pythons are scary? Oh, you have no idea. 60 million years ago, there was a snake on Earth that could eat today's biggest python, like a French fry. You think the planet was safe after the dinosaurs died off? Not even close. The dinosaurs had barely left, and something even more terrifying showed up. 15 meters long, 1 ton, a head bigger than your washing machine. It could swallow an entire cow in one go. It didn't use venom, just constriction. It could crush a crocodile's bones into powder. Scientists did the math. The pressure it generated when squeezing its body was like having a truck parked on your chest. And this snake didn't live in the jungle. It lived in the water. You wouldn't see it coming. By the time you noticed something moving in the water, you were already in its mouth. This isn't a movie. This was a real hell beast. Scientists gave it a name, Titanoboa. So here's the question. How did a snake get this huge? Why do today's snakes max out at about 7 meters, but 60 million years ago, they reached 15? The answer involves something you'd never guess. Temperature. Let's start in a coal mine in Colombia. In 2009, a group of miners were digging at Sarajevo. They suddenly uncovered a weird-looking bone. At first glance, it looked like a piece of drainage pipe, but when they looked closer, it was covered with the markings of vertebrae. They sent the fossil to paleontologists. The expert looked at it and froze. This was a snake's backbone. But here's the problem. That bone was thicker than a human fist. At the time, nobody could believe it, because if you scale that up, this snake would have been at least 13 meters long when it was alive. Keep in mind, the biggest python alive today is around 7 meters, and that's already terrifying. 13 meters? That's as tall as a 4-story building. Lay it flat, and it would take up an entire traffic lane. But that's not even the craziest part. Scientists kept digging, and the more they dug, the more stunned they got. In the same mining site, they unearthed fossils from 28 individual Titanoboas, and each one was bigger than the last. The final calculation. The largest one exceeded 15 meters. It weighed 1.13 tons. This data completely rewrote what humans knew about snakes. This wasn't a snake. This was a living meat grinder. Even scarier, its body structure. Using the fossils, scientists reconstructed what Titanoboa looked like. They found that the thickest part of its body was over 1 meter in diameter. Let that sink in. Stand your dining table on its side. That's roughly how thick the snake was. And it had over 250 vertebrae, each one the size of an adult human fist. That meant its body was extremely flexible. It could wrap around its prey multiple times, like shoving you inside a spring that just keeps tightening. There was no escape. But what really got scientists excited wasn't just how big it was. It was why it could get that big. Here's something you might not know. Snakes are cold-blooded. Their body temperature depends on their environment. The hotter the environment, the faster their metabolism and the bigger they can grow. Using Titanoboa's fossils, scientists worked backwards and made a shocking discovery. 60 million years ago, Earth was way hotter than today. Back then, the average temperature near the equator was around 32 to 33 degrees Celsius, about 90 to 92 degrees Fahrenheit. That's roughly 5 to 6 degrees Celsius, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than today. You might think 5 or 6 degrees, no big deal. But for an ecosystem, that's the difference between heaven and hell. In that era, the rainforest was basically a monster's playground. Besides Titanoboa, there were 3-meter-long lungfish, 6-meter-long crocodiles, freshwater turtles over 1 meter wide. The whole ecosystem looked like someone pressed the enlarge button. Everything was growing to insane sizes, and Titanoboa was the top predator of the supersized world. It didn't need to chase its prey. It just waited in the water. When a giant crocodile walked by, bam, it would launch itself like a spring, wrap its body around the prey, and start squeezing, tighter and tighter. Scientists calculated the pressure, around 400 pounds per square inch. That force would snap the prey's ribs one by one. Internal organs turned into paste. The whole process took less than 3 minutes. The prey barely had time to struggle before it was dead. Then came the eating part. This image might be a little intense. Titanoboa's jaw could dislocate. opening nearly 180 degrees. It would start from the prey's head and slowly shove the entire body down its throat. A 6-meter crocodile? That could take several hours to swallow. But once it was down, Titanoboa wouldn't need to eat again for months. That kind of feeding efficiency made it the most successful predator of its time. No other animal dared to mess with it. In that era, Titanoboa was a moving death sentence. But here's a question. What did it actually eat? The answer might surprise you. Titanoboa's main food wasn't large mammals. It was fish and crocodiles. Yep, back then, crocodiles were on the menu. Scientists found massive amounts of crocodile bones right next to Titanoboa fossils. And those crocodile bones had clear, crushing marks on them. What does that mean? It means that crocodiles in front of Titanoboa were like mice in front of a snake today. They were just prey. Now, next time you look at crocodile and think that thing is terrifying, maybe feel a little bad for it. So how did this monster go extinct? Again, temperature. Around 55 million years ago, Earth went through a global cooling event. Temperatures slowly started to drop for cold-blooded animals. A temperature drop means slower metabolism. They could no longer maintain such huge body sizes. Titanoboa started shrinking generation by generation, from 15 meters to 12, from 12 to 10, and eventually it disappeared from the planet entirely. It wasn't defeated by another animal. It was defeated by the climate. That's the cruelty of nature. You can be at the very top of the food chain, but you can never beat the environment. But the story doesn't end there. Scientists noticed something interesting. Titanoboa's extinction happened at the same time as the rise of another group of animals, mammals. Back in the dinosaur age, mammals were pathetic little things, about the size of rats. They spent their days hiding in holes, shaking in fear. After the dinosaurs died off, they finally had a chance come out. But right away, they ran straight into Titanoboa, another nightmare. Only after Titanoboa also went extinct did mammals truly explode in evolution. In a way, if that global cooling hadn't happened. If Titanoboa was still around, humans might not exist today. So the fact that you're sitting here watching this video, you can thank a climate shift that happened 60 million years ago. And here's one last thing that might keep you up at night. Global temperatures are rising right now. Scientists predict that by the end of the century, average global temperatures could rise another 2 to 4 degrees Celsius, about 4 to 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Guess what? If temperatures keep going up, snake body sizes will go up too. Now, we're not saying Titanoboa will come back. Oxygen levels in ecosystems are different now. But 7-meter pythons? 8-meter? Even 10-meter? Not impossible. In fact, in some tropical rainforests in Southeast Asia, people have already found reticulated pythons over 8 meters long. They're getting bigger and more aggressive. When that happens, the top predator in the jungle might not be tigers or lions anymore. It might be the silent, cold, water-wading snake. Maybe millions of years from now, when some new species digs through the ruins of human civilization, they'll notice something interesting. Before these weak little two-legged creatures disappeared, the snakes on Earth were quietly getting bigger again. 60 million years ago in Colombia,